budget. Please join me in the invocation, which will be led by Mr. Stroud, and the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, Father, we gather here for such good purposes, in glory, and for the benefit of the advocate and the issue of our allies and our allies as they carry out the fight against Iran's corrupt leadership, protecting our peace, loving our people, and delivering them from tyranny. Father, we ask you to guide us in performing our role and provide wisdom to ensure we make the best decisions for our citizens and their future. We thank you once again for the opportunity to serve and ask you to provide us with the ability to discern what we hear and the judgment necessary to act in accordance with your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks everybody. We will open the floor up for public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comments so that it can be properly included in the public record. And actually, before we get moving, Mr. Dines, can you hear over the speakers back there okay? That I really appreciate the fans, but I want to make sure that the public can hear and it's not just a constant roar over the YouTube.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can hear you fine.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And thank you all for setting all this up for us and keeping it bearable. All right. Anybody interested in the audience in making public comment? All right. Did anybody get any correspondence? And Mr. Dines, do you have anybody online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I'll close public comment at this time, and we will switch over to the agenda items. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to all the folks that put the work into getting all this packages done. The whole financial team, Matt, Ms. Fish, and I especially want to single out Ms. Fish. She was out here last night at 9:30 because I just asked the question, hey, can we have the raw spreadsheets on this instead of just a PDF file? And she actually came in, and it's not a single spreadsheet. It is gobs and gobs and gobs of spreadsheets. So thank you so much for all that extra time. I wish you hadn't done that because it's going to be a long day. We'll bring you caffeine every few minutes. All right. Matt, over to you, buddy.
There was an email that we got. I'm not sure if.
Can we make sure I use our microphones because I'm having trouble hearing Ken way down there.
I don't think it needs to be read into the email. Is he talking about this?
You talking about the one from Miss S?
Yeah, Matt responded to, but she said she was going to make the public meeting. I don't know.
I saw it. I wasn't sure if she wanted that read in a public comment. Matt addressed it, so I assume that we were good.
Okay.
If not, we can bring it up at the next Tuesday meeting, since I've already closed public comment. You good, Matt? All right, cool. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, anybody online who's watching from the public. So this is our FY27 budget work session as a follow-up to my initial non-balanced budget presentation from this past Tuesday night. So this is where we were April 7th, as you can recall, almost a $4.2 million delta. Now I want to start by saying something. Right now, the budget, this is not a school budget. This is not a Dr. Boyd budget. This is not a finance budget nor a board of supervisor budget. This is a county administrator's budget. And I am responsible for everything that has been presented to the board up to this point. And in the conversations yesterday, there was with all the cells, with all the sheets that we look at, there was one number that I missed before I made my presentation, and I take full ownership of that. So unfortunately, the one cell that did not, or was inadvertently carried over, was the $3.6 million transfer in the revenue line item. So as of yesterday afternoon, we learned it's almost a $7.8 million delta in the draft budget. So again, I'm county administrator. This is my budget. I take full responsibility for it. But let's move forward. And we got creative. We were working on this budget to the wee hours of the morning last night and came in and made some additional cuts. I kind of want to show you where we're at. And I've got some interesting data and, some brainstorming ideas for revenue. So last night, went through department by department, line by line, and I ended up cutting $1,024,008 out of the budget. And this is everything from a $200 line item up to some major cuts. And I'm going to go through these. And then what I did, I had a senior staff meeting yesterday morning. I sat around in the table with my team. I said, all right, everybody. I said, I need you to go through your individual budgets. I'm going to go through them, but I want you to go through them also and come up with cuts. So there may be additional cuts forthcoming as each department comes in front of the board today. And I will go through, each of the individual cuts that I made last night to equate to that a little over $1 million. This morning, a little bit more. Big ticket item, eliminate funding of non-mandated outside agencies. That was another $274 in savings. So this was a slide that you all saw on Tuesday night. Potential cuts for the Board of Supervisors. And I've color coded this, red, yellow, and green. The red, those items are gone. The yellow, they're either in progress or I've touched them. And the green, I did not touch those particular line items. And I do want to the third line down there, no full-time positions here at the county for this year. And I do want to call only one transfer of a job. I'll talk about that later, but I do want, you all to see that. So outside agencies, as of this morning, $275,000 approximately. Who doesn't, who does not get funding? These are the list of outside agencies that I cut this morning to try to make up this delta. Again, this is a work in progress, but this was the request. Now there are mandated outside agencies that we have no choice, but these are the optional ones. So I just wanted, I'm not going to read through the whole list, but it's there for the public. It's there for you, for you to see. And Ms. Bender,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question because some of these on this list, we don't even fund them at this moment, correct?
That's right. You can look at the FY26 budget, that column, that's who was funded last year. The 10,000, 35. So there are only 3, 4, 5. There are only 7 of them funded last year.
Okay, because then on the previous slide, I do have concerns with cutting the comprehensive plan up. I have big concerns on that.
Thank you. So second year here, no new positions at the county. So I did have 3 of them in there. Unfortunately, we've got to close this gap. So I've eliminated the capital projects inspector in engineering and the administrative assistant for the administration suite and also the grant writer for the county and the schools. And then the transfer. So there's only going to be one transfer request with this operating budget, and that's from administration to finance. This is Ms. Turner, who we transferred earlier this year, still paying her out of the administration budget. I do request that position be transferred full-time to finance as of FY27. We had some conversations with Mr. Franklin, Social Services, yesterday. On Tuesday night, I had indicated that the CHIN's position would be directed to DSS, so that would be a reimbursed position. We learned yesterday Mr. Franklin had some additional conversations with his group. In order to transfer and in order to have that position in Department of Social Services, an individual would need to have a bachelor's degree. At a minimum, no questions asked. The person who's currently in this role does not have a bachelor's degree. So we could move it, but then we're telling somebody who's been working at the county hard, you just lost your job. And I don't believe in that. I don't think that's right. It's a good worker. The individual is a good worker. So that job, the CHIN's position, goes back to the general fund. It is not going to social services as previously indicated, so we do not get reimbursed for that. Okay, is that clear? All right. So you have to put on your creative hat, and I want to thank Mr. Newchok. He's always running different ideas by me. So, Mr. Metz, I know you were not part of this since you were not on the Board of Supervisors. There has been a request by Waste Management to increase the tonnage at the landfill, and there's been historic precedents for increasing this through different amendments to the host agreement over the years. So right now, current annual tonnage is 1,248,000 tons, and we receive $5 per ton. And beginning in calendar year 27, that rate will increase to $6 a ton. So let's just do the plain flat out math. So 1,248 times $5, and I divided that by 2. So this is the second half. This is July through December. In calendar year, we'd get $3.12 million. And then as of January 1 of 27, it goes to $6 a ton. So if we max out those 6 months of the first half of calendar year, $3,744,000. So maximum amount, we could be looking at $6,864,000 in revenue generated by the landfill. Okay. Should the board want to consider working with and going back with the Waste Management and saying, you know what, we're looking, we can increase this annual cap to 1.6 million tons. Now, this would shorten the life of the landfill. So, this was discussed, so be aware of that, but it's front loading the money now. So if we do this, maybe I think the previous amendments it was a 4-year cap on it for the different amendments. You can do, different time limits. But let's face it, the location of this landfill is very convenient for anybody in the Northeast. If they go to other waste management landfills, they drive by our landfill to dump it. So, with time and money, fuel, this is very convenient for them. And this is something that they had requested. So, looking at these numbers, if we do increase it to 1.6 million tons, the first or the second half of this calendar year, you're getting $5 a ton. You can see the numbers at $4 million it would generate. And then the first half of calendar year 27. So maximum amount on paper, best case scenario, everything is maxed out, an increase of $1,936,000. Now that's not realistic because, if they go over their tonnage, then there's a penalty, there's additional fees that go on it. I talked to Mr. Newchok. Realistically, you're looking maybe $1.4 million in increased revenue. So this is another way, we're always looking at cuts, but this is a way we can bring in some additional revenue for the board's consideration. So what I did, I went back and I looked at the last number of years of the historic county budgets, the operating budget, the total budget for the county, all the way back to FY19 up to FY27. And then I put a trend line in there. And you can see the $145 million that's proposed for FY27, that's pretty much spot on. If you follow the trend over these last years, that's what we're looking at. So I just wanted you to all see how the overall budget has grown at King George County. Next slide is taxable assets. So you look, this year we're almost $5.2 billion worth of assets. And when you look at it, you can see, here we go, this is organic growth, and then that was a reassessment between 22 and 23. This is organic growth, and there was a reassessment year right there. So the reassessment years really stand out. Again, you look at this trend line of the taxable assets. Then I went back through, Ms. Puckett helped me out a lot this morning. I come back and I look at the historic real estate tax rates. And you look at that trend line. It's going the opposite direction. So I know there's some articles going around where we're watching other localities of, what should that tax rate be? And you follow that trend line, where does that point to in FY27? Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Can you?
Do we have this brief?
I finished it literally a minute before I got down here, sir. I can send it to you, but I've been working on this since I started late last night in the early morning hours. So.
All right.
And I will definitely, I can get this to all of you, but I was hoping there's no errors in it because I just got done with it right before I got down here. So again, you look at the budget going one direction,
Can I ask a question or ask a favor of you?
absolutely,
Before you post this online, can you clarify on the slide, that top line is the equalizer rate. The rest
Yes.
of those are actual rates.
that's fair enough.
I don't want the residents seeing that going,
Say, well,
crap.
if you go to 50 cents, that good point, Mr. Sullins. So we will make that point, and I'll have my staff remind me. Yes, sir. Very
And
good point.
agreeing with Mr. Stroud, for our further discussion on the day, it would be good to be able, because I can then.
Do you want, I can take a 30-second, I can email to you right
I
now.
would appreciate, because it'll be able, so we can refer back to it if we.
Yep, so what I will do is I've got, I think, one more slide, and I'll pause, I'll back out of this and email it to you all, so you have it. So deficit as of yesterday, $7.8 million, as I stated. The cuts I did last night, cuts this morning. If we do the additional landfill, the agreement, and if Waste Management agrees to it, that's a money in of 1.3 million. So we're looking at a deficit right now of $5.2 million, or 10-cent real estate tax rate increase. And that's with all the cuts that I proposed. So that's my last slide. Let me pause real quick here. Let me get it to you all so you have it, if that's okay with you, Mr. Sullins. And just, I'll be happy to answer any questions now, or we can do it throughout the day, but I do want to get this to you all.
Anybody got any questions right now? All right, so go ahead.
All right, let me just unplug my computer and I'll get it to you. Just stand by.
All right, I think we're good to press on.
Yeah, I think I'm my hair today.
Me either.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I think you guys should have all received my document. Can you confirm you've received it? Okay, very good. So would you like to start going through the?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right. So first up, we've got the landfill, Mr. Newchalk. So what I've got on the screen is just the overall budget summary. We can go through, just so the board sees how this is generated. So you've got your accounts over on the left-hand side, and then each tab, say for instance, you want to go to 3311, which is vehicle repairs and maintenance. So this is the way the budget's created. I'm just going to walk you through it. So each department head goes through and puts exactly what they want to see with their vehicle repairs and maintenance for the landfill. This totals the cost, carries it over to the budget summary. So with Mr. Newchalk last night, so the board graciously approved a new roll-off truck for Mr. Newchalk. We're going to get that ordered and hopefully up and running as close to July 1 as possible. So some of the money that Mr. Newchalk built in here was based on, he was not sure if he was going to get the new roll-off. So he had $15,300 for the Peterbilt in the Mac roll-off repairs. Roll-off truck tires, $15,300, and then the repairs, $35,000. With that new roll-off truck, I figured we can cut this, and if there are repairs or tires, we can find it out of another part of the budget. But I made those two particular cuts. Line item 6,000. Under miscellaneous, there was, what we got here? No, six, where we at? There we go, through $3,000 per M. Smolnik for miscellaneous materials. These, you can see what these are. These are safety vests, broom, shovels, paint, particular items for the for the landfill. And then in account 8001, there was money for roll-off containers. Mr. Newchalk had requested 2 roll-off containers. I figured we can do 1. Now they are pretty bad out there, but looking for any budget cuts that we can. So I reduced it by 1 for a total cut of, for landfill, $61,070. Questions, concerns by the board members?
What was the number again? 61,000?
61070.
Thank you.
And Mr. Newchalk, is there anything else you wanted to add about the, you can speak a little bit more eloquently about the host agreement and the tonnage cap. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to the board of supervisors should they wish to? Again, my numbers right now, that deficit is based on the board's willingness to go back and work with waste management to increase that annual tonnage. So Mr. Newchalk, anything else?
Well, there is real precedent here. The 18th, the 19th, and the 20th Amendment covered this. In 2018 and calendar 2019, the host tonnage limit was actually increased to 1,800,000 tons. It was only in the 20th Amendment that was brought back down to 1,600,000. So the current base is 1,248,000. But they intended to do it for 5 years in the 20th Amendment, but there was a discrepancy with the date. They accidentally put January 2024 when they meant to do December. So there's real precedent there for that. And as Matt said, it does shorten the life of the landfill. So if you go from 248 up to 1.6, you're looking about every 3 years losing a year. However, I think there is appetite for extending this current landfill agreement if possible. So right now we're probably going to run out of space in about 21 years. But the hope is that in about 10 years, we'll start the process for an expansion because it'll be easier to expand an existing permit than to get a new one.
Yeah, thank you for adding that bit of information. That was one question I had after thinking about your chart there for a little bit. The 21 years is a sort of relative anyway based on the demand. And I think that gives us some flexibility to continue to work. I'm quite alarmed by the shortfall in revenues this year. So I hope all departments are looking at their revenue sources and coming up with ideas like this. I would definitely be supportive.
Excellent. I also spoke with Waste Management this morning and asked if it would still be possible to tie this to the expansion of Perkins with reason, and Waste Management thought that that was something that would be reasonable, so we could tie both of these together. They'll commit to a date for the Perkins expansion as well with a tonnage increase.
And while we've got Mr. Newchuk up there, the next one in front of me, I did not make any cuts or were the convenience center. So Mr. Newchuk and I have had some discussions. A majority of the convenience centers, are the salaries of the part-time workers.
Before we get off from landfill,
I'm sorry?
before we go away from the.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Are there any other questions on that? All right, so I'm looking at the PDF file that you sent us out. I reversed that back into an Excel spreadsheet and kind of started playing with it a little bit. And we had talked about salary increases, 4% for some organizations, 5% for others. I'm looking at the budget. So the FY26 budget is an increase of 4%, but what I'm showing at the department level and the county administrator level is a 9% increase of salaries. Which one of those numbers are we working with?
So we're still on the landfill, you said?
Yep.
Okay, and let me get back there.
Mr. Joe, while he's looking at that, if we do the increase, at what year will the landfill be done?
Right now, at current rate, it's expected to make it 21 more years, but it's a little bit of a rolling date because you've got dynamic compaction and the limit is your height. So as it gets heavier, it continues to compact what's down below on that first level. But their actuaries have it at about 21 years.
Okay, so if we make this increase, that would decrease, you said one for three, about?
I mean, so if you look at a base rate of 1,248,000, that's very rough math. Mm-hmm. That's just me adding 300,000 and 350,000 tons on top of it.
Matt, we're good. I was looking at calendar year 25, not fiscal year 20. Yeah, we're good.
So I want to preface back to my slide where I had the red, the yellows, and the greens. Some of these, like I said, we have been making cuts or we're in progress. And I wanted the board to know that as far as COLA adjustments, on Tuesday night presented 4% for the county, 5% for the teachers, with a compression fix at step 9 for the teachers, and then a COLA and a merit for social services. Talked to Dr. Boyd, talked to Jonathan Franklin yesterday. I said, here's where we're at. So everybody's going down to 2%. And I've asked Dr. Boyd and Jen over there to run the numbers to get rid of the compression for step 9 for the teachers. As Dr. Boyd, when he gets here, I just want to let you all know is my understanding, the way that it is, if the state mandates a 3% COLA, we have to match that. So those numbers are not in from the state yet. So as we're talking salaries here, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Solons, because I skipped over that in my initial presentation. We have reduced the COLA to everybody down to 2% and got rid of step increases, got rid of merits.
And we're still at a $5 million deficit?
Yes, sir. Well, no. Those numbers are not baked in yet.
Okay.
Those are in progress. Those are the yellow bars. We're working on them right now.
Okay.
I have to ask the one question, with not doing those increases, what does that do for our retention level? Understanding that other localities are raising the tax rate. We're going to lose staff. We're going to lose staff. And I know at the school level, they've already lost one whole grade level at one of the elementary schools to a new school in Stafford because they're giving them $20,000 more. So as a person who has a parent, as a child in the schools, and I know there's 2 other on the board that concerns me to lose quality teachers.
You're going to lose quality teachers. You're going to lose quality county workers. Yes.
All right. So I was going to ask, so you said 2%. You didn't leave yourself any for merit?
No, I stuck with 2%. I need to cut right now.
Okay, so this morning, the Consumer Price Index was released, and we're at 3.3% inflation from last year. So effectively, you're giving everybody a cut if you go to 2%.
And then that's why initially we were predicting that 3, somewhere around there. That's why I went with a 4 to try to stay ahead of inflation. But unless there's a willingness for the tax rate increase to support that, I'm going to have to recommend cuts unless the board is okay with increasing tax rates to keep our staff and the schools up with inflation, at least with inflation.
I'd like you to at least consider, obviously with discussion amongst the other members, some portion of merit, to 2 plus 1% merit or 2 plus 2% merit, so that there is some management ability to reward and retain the best
And we can, as we're working on these COLAs, we'll work some options. Yes, sir.
But that's going to have to be, there's going to have to be a cap associated with that, or it's going to turn into a default 4% for everybody anyway. So we're going to have to look at that and see how the numbers bake out.
Okay.
I don't think we have the details we need to make that decision right now.
You don't know. You know, the worst case scenario would be the 4% COLA that I suggested initially. I mean, that's max, but that's what you want to avoid, but that's your worst case scenario, 2 + 2.
Going back as we closed out the last year, so we took $3.6 million out of the general fund to balance the budget last year. From all the departments, how much was returned at the end of the year?
Do you have a computer?
I heard the number 8 million kicked around, which sounds like Jesus math, but
I got Ms. Dillard. She's going to go grab her laptop. I don't want to go through everything on the screen and go through all the files. She'll go through it, not to confuse everybody, get everybody dizzy, and I'll give you a number. How's that?
I have a quick question on the COLA. So you mentioned the schools and the county staff. Did you also mention fire? Would that mean fire and rescue in the sheriff's office?
So no,
Nope.
you know, fire, rescue, and sheriff have a guaranteed 3% step increase. So they do not also receive the COLA. They are only this 3% guaranteed, and that is on their anniversary date. So these step increases, I sign off on those on a monthly basis based on when they started their tenure with King George County. And I believe it does go down to maybe years 20 to 25, it goes down to 2%. So it does taper off near the end, but that's a guaranteed raise for public safety.
that's built into their contract too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, my personal opinion, I don't want to go messing with people's contracts, so.
And that's why, yeah, those numbers, those were the green lines. I did not touch those.
Okay, so to bring this back to Mr. Newchuk's discussion on landfill. Since we're obviously challenged this year in finances, have we looked at what the savings would be by going down to one service center on the weekends?
Well, that's a discussion that we had. And initially it's, on the weekends, but the weekends are pretty busy days. I believe Mr. Newchuk said this morning, they should not be concurrent days, Tuesday, Thursday?
Well, I mean, if you're going to do, during COVID, we had reduced hours. We had Perkins shut down. We had reduced hours. So if you were going to do 2 days, I might lean, if you wanted to do a weekend, maybe like a Sunday, Wednesday, or we could do, Caroline County is shut down on Wednesdays. That's their maintenance day during the week. But I mean, a lot of I have 4 full-timers. I have 8 part-timers. So I mean, you're looking at saving part-time salaries.
Oh.
It's really, it might not be quite the number you're looking for the headache it's going to cause the public.
Yeah, roger that. And I in no way intended to say both centers would be shut down at the same time. I think just as I've looked around at the other counties, service centers have been one of the areas, not all the service centers being closed, but maybe taken and concentrating on one main one for our weekend hours. Okay, I asked the question. I don't think we have the number.
I would like to just throw one thing out. So the King George County landfill is not open on Saturdays and Sundays. So everything that we take in, we're having to compact and hold. And we're nearing some of our limits on what we can do. So if you're shutting down that and you're concentrating it to one day, it might cause you some additional issues.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, yes, sir.
And I will tell you, as the person who was here during COVID, the hate mail you're going to get if you close those convenience centers down, you will not believe how many emails you will get.
So let me preface this, right? We are in a shortfall this year. I'm just looking at what our revenues are this year, and it's not looking like we're going to hit the revenue number that we had predicted for this year, which puts us at an even bigger hole. The only options we're left with is what services are we not going to provide? There's certain mandatory services we have to fulfill, and we have to fulfill them well. Otherwise, we'll have additional expenses for retraining new employees that, like you had mentioned, right? If we can't keep up with salary expectations, we lose people. When we gain somebody new, it is more expensive to train a new employee than to retain a good existing employee. So I am going to ask this question probably for many of the departments. Where are you looking at to take non-mandatory expenses out of the equation. So this is just the first one up. Thank you for being my guinea pig.
Sir.
We have, and I know that this is going to be unpleasant unless, and the hate mail is interesting, right? If you're unwilling to pay more in taxes, what service do you not want?
All right, any other questions? All right, I'm sorry, now we can move on to the portion.
I think we touched on the convenience centers. That was the next one up. Any other questions maybe on the convenience center? Again, I did not propose any specific cuts last night for the convenience centers.
I didn't see anything that raised my eyebrows.
Okay, litter control is a grant. So next up, if I can keep moving, will be the treasurer. I think we've got a representative from the treasurer here.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. And this may be a finance question, but I'm looking at that historic county budget slide
Yes, sir.
you had up, and it shows from FY19, 81,841,000 to what you had for FY27, 145 million.
I'm just going to pull it up here so everybody can, so we can have it for a talking point. Everybody sees it. Is the budget, sir? Is that the one?
That's it. So in looking at that, if I took the 145 million, the top amount, and I subtract out the FY19, the 81 million amount, then the average a year increase is $7,904,000 average. If we just use FY26 and subtract out the FY29 or 2019, the average is 7 million. So there's a $904,000 difference. But the trajectory here, what this tells us is we're increasing right now. The budget's increasing like 8 million. So we're taking what we're spending today, we're taking our current budget, and we're increasing that an average of $8 million a year. So that means in 10 years, that's going to be another $80 million.
Yeah.
I think there's a problem. I don't know if that's sustainable. So, I mean, that's a big picture. So there's a lot of details. There's a lot of details in here.
And remember, this number there is way beyond just that booklet. This is all state revenue. This is federal revenue. This is the entire county budget. What you've got there is pretty much the general fund, where there's discretion amongst the Board of Supervisors. Baked into here is the state aid for schools. That's based on pupil generation. The Board of Supervisors in any locality doesn't have a say over that. So really the booklet that you all have here, this is really what the Board of Supervisors has control of. You can't control your debt service. That's already done. We know that's $9.8 million. And we know what our debt payments are for the next 20 years. So I just wanted to clarify. And this is everything. So you remember what I said at the board meeting on Tuesday night? Of the $145 million, if you take salaries and benefits for county employees, salaries and benefits for school, and debt service, you're at $103 million. That's 103 just to keep everybody working. And then you've got keep the fuel in the buses, the lights on, the heat on. How many million does that add? So the big piece of the piece of the pie that this board can really focus on, it's not the 145, and that's why I wanted to put those numbers up there on Tuesday night.
Okay, but here's the thing. We started out and you showed us this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we need to focus on, I mean, what you're trying to do is you're focusing our attention. You're focusing our attention on an amount that we can't impact. We need to be focused on what we can impact.
The operating budget. So what you wanted to see is the historic budgets for operating, what you all have control over.
So
I'm sorry, the general fund. I didn't say, I meant I said the operating.
the thing is where we're at today. We're getting briefs from the individual departments. So you're getting a piece at a time. And after you get done going through that, you know, because every one of them, I'm talking to the board members here, every department's gonna come up and they go through and it's all gonna sound like, okay, man, we can't cut this, we can't cut that, or they may offer something, but you can't really get through the details to figure out where you can cut that way. I mean, we're gonna hear each department brief, we're gonna see their budget, but it's going in, taking some time and needling in to figure that out. We don't get that here. That takes, it really, for me, I have to actually crack the code, and honestly, I have to use, and I didn't bring it with me, but I have to use my magnifying glass in my office to try to read the words in this, right? So that's why I asked for the brief, because I can see the brief better. But if we're looking at individual departments, we're getting briefed by individual departments, and we're trying to figure out, pull, you know, a couple 100,000 out here and a couple 100,000 out there, a few 100,000 here. It's going to be very difficult to close the gap where we need to be. You know, but I'm interested in a trajectory, and I'm interested in why over 8 years we're getting close to doubling our budget. You know, in another year we're going to be right at it. You know, this time next year, you know, that brief, instead of saying 145,000, this is going to be saying 160,000. So we're right at doubling. You know, so by then, you know, if I go home and at my house, my budget has doubled in 8 years, my expenses doubled in 8 years, I got to figure out what's going on and where the money's coming from. And that's our job. We got to figure out why are we allowing the county's budget to grow by $8 million a year?
So along those lines, you heard me Tuesday night ask the question, like the slope of the line looked like it was about 2 million, give or take, each year. Where that came from was last year, what was on the website when we finally published the budget was 137 million and change. The year before was 135 million and change. Did we have the wrong numbers before, or do we have the wrong numbers now? Because again, that was a roughly 2, give or take, you know, we can round it up to 3 million, but it looks like we made a huge jump this year.
Mr. Sons, like I said, I worked till about 1 a.m. last night. I was up at 7 this morning trying to crank these numbers out to go back through and verify everything. I was looking for general trend. I can go back, but I'm going to need a little bit more time.
That's fine. I just want you to understand the logic, what's going on.
I understand.
And the numbers that I've seen before, and
And you know, if we get a 5-minute break, if you'd like me to try to create that, operate the general fund budget with a trend analysis, I can do that. I went through and pulled these numbers off of SharePoint with what we've used traditionally for the budget summary. And I've gone to the bottom of that, and that's the number that I've put in. I can't verify. I didn't have time to go back and review the minutes from all these fiscal years to see what was officially adopted.
I got you.
Yeah.
Please understand, you know, there's 1,000 moving parts and then some. We fully appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that you've done. You've done a really good job. We're trying to understand all of it. You know, we got some PDF files. Some of us, me too, are visually challenged, you know, so, you know, we're just trying to understand really what's going on, because when we hear stuff like having to raise taxes by 8 pennies, that's impactful. Yeah, losing people, yes, that's impactful, you know, to the staff and to the teachers and all the other various staffs around the county. But people losing their farms because they can't pay their daggone property taxes, that's impactful as well. So we just want to make sure that we get it right. So we're going to take 5 and let him do some tweaking. Go for it.
Quick question for Matt. Is we're talking about the numbers, that's not anything state mandated, right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about.
I don't understand what's not state mandated. I'm sorry.
Like, is it part of the increase in the budget, is it because of state mandates?
You know, I mean, I would expect, since his enrollment has gone up, now enrollment's tapered up, but as enrollment, you know, filled or high school and everything.
Talking about schools,
But that's
other
state,
things.
but that's state funding, because you get so much per pupil. So state funding has increased as this goes up also.
Right,
But are there unfunded mandates in there that have increased?
Oh, are there unfunded
right,
mandates?
that's what I'm trying to ask.
I'm
Like,
quite certain there are. I mean, I've seen them in, you know, other localities. They're here.
Yeah, there's a curriculum requirement that's put in.
The curriculum was 686 for social studies
That's
for
well
next year. It was
over
right at $1
$500,000.
million last year for math.
Yeah.
That's 1.7 million.
yeah, I'm just asking because that's part of that rate too, is stuff that we can't control at all.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, just one last quick about that, right? Yes, there's things in there we can't control. There's also growth of the county in there. I mean, if you look back at revenue growth has historically been about 2%, even though our personnel, people that live here growth is like 1.2. And so that's kind of baked into this trend line over the whole period. I am interested in so then you got to look at what's the part we can control, right? Take out the state part of the schools, take out our federal contributions out of that. What's left for us to control within that? Which is why I asked the services question, right? Because those are the pieces that are within our authority to control. But I would expect that over the 20 years of growth that we have had, you have seen an equivalent services growth to match that, right? I don't think Parks and Rec was anything like it is now 20 years ago when the county was half the size that it is. My finance teacher is echoing in my mind at the moment that, hey, remember the value of your dollar halves every 20 years, just based on inflation. And I bring back up because this morning the inflation number came out and we're at 3.3%. So expect everything to cost us 3.3% more than it did this time last year. That's all.
Cool.
There was a bunch of legislation that was going to get passed that they pushed off till after the midterms, of course, because they don't want to affect the elections for the one side to like 2028. But you're going to see another bump because there's like 50 or 60 different things that they've signed that 100% of that cost they're going to mandate is going to be sent to the locales. So by 2028, you can look at it increasing a whole lot.
So take 5. All right.
Oh, man. 1, 2, 3.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that pause. So, I do want to, as I, realize over the break, I want to make the statement that the numbers at the top, the FY27, those are projections. However, they are considered in the trend line. So that is a hard point on these. So, if it makes sense, I guess if you wanted to project, you would only do FY19 to FY26 and see where that number falls. But here's the historic general fund. This is Fund 100. You can see some years we were below, some years we were over. But it's just, really the year-to-year increase of the general fund. And again, these are based on the numbers I'm pulling off, not off the website, but off of, not verified by the minutes, but based on the summary sheets that's in the finance folder for all the previous years.
That would include the 13.2 population increase we had in 10 years also, probably some of that revenue.
Yeah, there's organic growth in here, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Any idea what happened between fiscal year 24 and 25?
I don't know, that's quite a jump.
The budget numbers that you were showing before, that's like a $17 million delta. That's massive.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, sir.
All right, just curiosity.
Sure. What's that?
I think budget was.
All right, any questions on this so far?
Okay, I'm not.
We don't know why there's an increase.
No, I mean, we understand why there's an increase. What we don't understand, I was a curious question. 24 to 25 was a huge jump compared to the others.
No.
The rest of it looks like it's a relatively stable glide slope.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you don't know why that's there?
That was a previous administration, previous board. Again, this was the approved budget. I don't know what, you may have approved 79 million, but if $72 million was spent, they may have returned a large number. I don't know, but it could be padding. But again, you also need to look at what was returned that year. Just because that's the approved budget doesn't mean that's what was actually spent.
Right. Did we get the information on what was returned this year?
We can do that.
Yeah, I think that's not my question. My question is if, excuse me, and if I'm preparing this, if you present this to me and I'm looking at it and I say, you know what, I've got a question here and I need to get an answer. Because regardless of whether it's a previous year or not, I want to know why that's there. And it's a budget. Budgets are good, but I would need the budget alongside what was actually spent so I can see, okay, that this is the amount budgeted and we were above or below it. Are we historically below? Are we historically above? How has that happened? Of course, then my next question is going to be why? Why am I below? Did somebody not extend their budget? Who was it? Are they doing that multiple years? Were there 3 years in a row they overestimated? Or maybe, but it's figuring those questions out because we're looking for, what, $5 million? So things like that matter. Is trying to figure out and it's going to take cracking that open to get some of that stuff.
I'm going to, the historical data is great to see, trend analysis and all that. To open it up and say, why was this done? How much was returned? We can't do anything about that. And this is my advice. Let's focus on FY27 and make it, that's what we need to be drilling down on.
So we can't do anything about the past. I get it. But looking at those trends, what we can say is we're asking for more and more each year, and we're giving back more and more each year. We're asking the people of the county to tighten their belts for a year just so that we can return more money at the end.
And
that,
it is absolutely
that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's what we did, but without knowing those numbers, we can't say whether we did or not.
Right, and that's, and you look at that fund balance growing year after year. You're right, we have a very, very healthy fund balance here. And the return to the citizens, as I said on Tuesday, and whenever we need to spend, I'm just saying hypothetically, $20 million on a VOTEC, and we can front load 10 million in cash and only borrow $10 million. That's the savings to the residents, because now you're not paying interest on $10 million over 20 years.
Exactly. So whenever we bought a new courthouse, or, of course, we can't do anything about that. But, if I know that I'm going to buy a new car, or I'm going to need a new car, then I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to start saving for the new car now. Well, in the county, it doesn't appear as though there was any savings, set aside for, we're going to need a new courthouse. 10 years ago, they said, we need a new courthouse, so start putting some money away. That probably didn't happen. So I'm in agreement that we can't change the past, but we can learn from it so we don't recreate it. Whenever the people out there start throwing tomatoes this way, it's like, I want to make sure that I'm not the guy that continued on or just made bad decisions that they have to live with. So we're trying to make better decisions. And we should be putting away money now. We should be saving money for that future building. We should be putting that money away for the future building. But we're presented today with a deficit. So before we can save money, we need to figure out how to get out of the deficit.
So I think we're trying to solve it all today, and I think we can agree that we're not going to solve it all today. And I think you're going down exactly the path that I want to, just not right now. Those 4 people in the audience that are scowling, they're starting to scare me. So let's try to get back on timeline. And we'll get the briefs from the departments, and then we'll have the conversation, at a different time when these people aren't, on hold. We good with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank y'all. Sorry. You're smiling again. That's great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So treasurer, why is my screen not sharing? Let me see, why is this not? Mr. Dines to the rescue. I'm not sure. My screen's different from what's up on the projector.
Yes. He has very well. He's doing great.
All right, so the treasurer, you all have the spreadsheet. Ms. Carrion is here representing the treasurer. Thank you. So really last night, I went through their budget. I remember whenever they presented it to us, it's pretty darn lean. I took out $5,000 for postage, and that's really all I could trim. I didn't see anywhere else. They run a lean budget. If there's anywhere else, anything else you would like to add? Any questions for Treasurer's Department?
No, the only big
Treasurer?
increases I saw were in things like printing and shredding and whatnot, but those numbers are so small, it's insignificant.
Right.
You give me give me a nickel today and 2 nickels tomorrow is 100% increase, but it's still small numbers. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Nothing else with, or I see possible question?
Real quick, I think this is more like a global question. In several places, I see shirts for staff. In a year where we're asking everybody, I think that's one that I would not be supportive of unless we wrap them all into work with Amy Southall and maybe do some group buys from the county level or set up a county purchase website or something. I just think it makes this is not our money.
Right. So typically, I mean, I'd like this. Yeah.
I agree. There's a lot of good reason for it. And some organizations, right, that have a very forward-facing face to the public, I like the look, but if I'm looking for what's required, shirts isn't it.
That's about, usually it's $100 a person, so that's $27,000 right there. I mean, everybody.
And my thought is if we pulled that all into one buy, we get a little better wholesale rate. I would like that thought process to percolate across all of the county departments, right? As opposed to 500 here, 500. You just first one up that it was on the list. Sorry.
Is it actually coming from them or is it allocated there?
So the uniforms line item in everybody's budget it's part of the operating budget. It's down to six.
May still be a large buy.
Okay.
Just allocated so they can, if they're making a buy for $20,000, but where's that money going? It's allocated.
It's still coming from the same kitty.
I
Yes.
think I saw somewhere it was $100 a polo, and I'm like, oh,
No, it's $100 a person
$100 a person.
is what's allocated. That's traditionally what's been done here in King George. Yes.
But do we need to continue to do it, right? Are shirts important to the function we provide?
Yeah.
Is the question.
I don't know. I bought my own. Tried to. Did I pay for these? I tried to. I'm willing to buy my own.
Any other questions for Ms. Carrion? All right. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have the Commonwealth Attorney, Ms. Gussman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well.
Oh, hang on there. I hear you're under the other. Hang on.
I'm hidden legal.
Commonwealth Attorney. There we go.
Here I am.
All right. So last night, what did I do for Commonwealth Attorney? Cut $500 for postage, $100 or $1,000 for travel, and $1,320 for office supplies.
The only issue is going to be with travel. That's travel and training, and that's mandatory for us to have our CLEs. We have to have continuing legal education for the 3 attorneys to be able to keep up our licenses.
So this, all 9,000 is needed?
Hold on. I don't think they changed that. It should be 7,500 because we had to do with the elimination of Charlie not being part of the Commonwealth Attorney's office.
Okay.
So actually, we should be okay then with 8,000.
So that's okay.
So that's okay.
All right.
You did it that way.
It was a good cut last night, right?
There you go. Good job. Thank you, Mr.
All right. And then the other one was for office supplies. And I took out 1,320, take it down to even 7,500.
Got it.
So I just noticed this is one of the few departments where personnel expenses goes down. Our request this year versus last year. Ms. Guzman and I chatted just before this meeting. I just want to say I appreciate the work you're doing to rework your staff and how you're using them to fill urgent needs at a little bit lower rate than we've been paying in past years. So thank you.
Well, and number one, I do have to thank Mr. Smolnick and all of finance because they did allow me in the middle of a very busy budget season to move around money because obviously the board knows Mr. Charlie Clark, who is no longer with my office because he became a judge. But his position was 100% county funded. And because of how the state does their things, I had that $75,000 position that was open that I had told you last December. I couldn't hire an attorney for that. So because Charlie left, I could then hire my new person with the base of that 75 and steal some of Charlie's money to then pay him at a rate that is appropriate for an attorney. So that was a little bit of the generosity of the board in previous years, showing the fact that we needed to have 3 attorneys. And so then the state came in and gave us the 75,000 that we did need. So in the end, it all worked out.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got clerk of the court next, 21. Oh, did I miss one? Who did I miss? Okay. All right. So we've got, let me see, what did I? So I did not touch the courts nor the judges' salaries. I didn't make any additional cuts last night. Is there anything that the board sees in clerk of the circuit court, the technology fund, the judges? I mean, these are very small budgets.
Mr. Smolnik, one, double check the health insurance premiums calculation. This one was a 63% increase over last year.
For which,
Oh, I'm sorry, clerk of the circuit court, 21,600.
okay.
It jumped from 87 to 142. There's a few departments, I'll flag them as we go, where the increase seems to be disproportionate to our healthcare increase. This one, I think there's a little bit of staffing input to that too, so I could maybe understand.
And we'll look at that, and it may just not be staffing, maybe people changing different plans or whatnot. So thank you for the note.
So circuit court, clerk of the circuit court, the salaries went up a lot, like over 100,000. Did we add a person there?
Yeah, so this was a request. There was a raise for the it was one of the employees over there in the court's office at the request of one of the judges. So
$100,000 raise.
no, it wasn't $100,000 raise. But we're taking notes and flagging these. We're not going to fix everything and have the answers, but we're flagging it, and we'll go back and look at it.
Exactly what I'm looking for.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
A different question if it's reimbursed by the comp board versus we're paying it out of our budget. It's a little unclear whether there's comp board.
No, we can move on. Flag it and move on. We're good. Let's keep it rolling.
We made note of the question, and we'll get the answer. So we are down. Well, yeah, we got. So this is the year. Remember, last year we had combined courts. This year they split them. So now we have general district court and JDR. Can you come up to? Yeah. So just maybe explain the difference. We had to learn a little during the budget review
Hi,
team.
I'm Rebecca Connor. I'm the clerk for the General District Court. Sherry Taylor is now the clerk for JNDR Court, but she is not here. They had court today, so she had to be there. So I'm just here for both of us to see if there was anything that you needed from me,
And
or any changes or any cuts.
I mean, one budget's 25,000, one's 21,000. These, of local money. These are very small local funded. So I did not make any or propose any cuts last night to either general district or JDR.
Okay, no worries. I'm looking at the line. It was in the spreadsheet. It says fiscal year 26 salary and wages was 473,000 and change. The department request is 583,000 and change. But like Mr. Metz said, it's kind of hard to tell if all of that is on the county or none of that is on the county or what. So it's just a big increase. And
I don't think that has.
Which specifically?
account number 1100,
I think that's circa.
That's
Let me go
circuit,
back.
Yeah.
clerk of the circuit court. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm
clerk
for
of the
General
circuit.
District. So yeah, we're funded. Our salaries are paid by the state.
Gotcha.
And so there is part of our budget that it's in there is for salary supplement that you guys, have approved graciously to us to help, because, we collect and do so much for the courts and stuff. So, but that.
Yeah, there's a $6,258 supplement. Minimal.
Yeah. It's not much, but.
I got you. No, I'm just taking the numbers at face value. When I'm doing the budget at home, I lose my mind when I can't account for it. I'm like, and then my wife is like, "Oh, remember I went and did." I'm like, "Okay, sweet."
Yeah.
Just trying to account for it.
Yeah. So are we good? Good. You need me for anything else, Matt? Guess not.
I think next one, we've got Commissioner of the Revenue. We are getting my, Yes. Okay, for Commissioner of the Revenue, let me pull this up for you all. So 5210, that's postage, $1,000 there. And Ms. Puckett, I told a fib this morning. I did remove 1350 for travel training. I looked at a lot of numbers last night, so I do apologize for our conversation this morning, but it took that down to $6,070. And then also for 6,001 office supplies removed it by $1,000, so 3,350. I mean, these are small cuts, but I'm making them. And if there's anywhere else the board would like to see cut, just please let me know. Ask a question.
So I have a question on salaries. We had talked at once before about some raises that were provided already over the course of the year. Did that occur?
So yes, last fall there was a vacant position, and those funds were redistributed amongst her staff members. This year the request was made again. I had a good conversation with Ms. Puckett. We looked at other surrounding localities, and very similar to pretty much every other employee at the county, King George is underpaid. However, what we decided to end up doing was that the one position that had been vacant for about a year and a half, she decided to fill that job. So now Ms. Puckett you are fully staffed. I think you have more people in your office than you've had in the last year and a half. So we did in fact, utilize that. We did not redistribute that open job to salary increases for the current staff, rather than we hired another body to take on some of the additional work. And some of this had to deal with some of our conversations with, and I mentioned it, the license plate tax, the Maryland tags on cars. That's going to be a project, as I stated on Tuesday night, after the budget's done. But that's going to take some brawn and some teamwork down in the Commissioner of Revenue. So we decided to add that position, or to fill that position that was already approved by the Board of Supervisors versus redistribution of funds.
Okay, so the 10 or so percent increase in salaries, that's from adding a new position, not from giving double raises over the course of the year?
Damn. So the numbers, or the salaries that you're looking at, the numbers, sir, can you repeat that for wages?
So what I'm looking at in the spreadsheet is an increase of about 10, give or take, percent in salaries and wages. Is that in addition to raises that were already given over the course of the year, or is that because we added a new person to it?
Yeah, I'm looking, here's Commissioner of Revenue, FY26 of 449.
Or is that a reflection of the raise that was given earlier in the year?
The raise that was given earlier The raise that was given earlier in the year is included in this fiscal year 26-27 budget.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Commissioner of the Revenue? All right, we're moving on. We've got community engagement. All right, I know I made a couple minor changes to community engagement. Let me pull that up for the board. Summary. Okay, the first cut I made, I discussed, was Ms. Southall this morning. She had $4,500 requested for an intern. We've got some full-time staff. I think we're rolling up there, so we decided we could cut that. So $4,500 there. And then from printing and binding, I took $10,000. That was account 3,500. So $14,500 from community engagement. Is there anywhere, and remember, this is a unique position where, Ms. Southall has some of the funds for salaries are in the general fund and others are in the tourism fund. The tourism fund comes from percentages 3, 4, and 5 of the transient occupancy tax. And that has to be used for expenses that bring or keep people here for overnight stays. So Ms. Southall's department is a kind of a blend. Any questions for myself or Ms. Southall?
Just going to pause for a minute and make sure.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been hogging the mic. Okay, press on.
All right, I think we see, okay, so tourism, tourism is not general fund. That's, so you guys, yeah, we don't touch that. So next one is community development. Let me pull this up. I think we're going to have some discussion here based on.
Mr. Smolnick, just
Yes.
quick before we jump over tourism.
Sure.
Are we fully expending our occupancy tax dollars?
Yes,
Tourism now?
yes. That's almost, it's a balanced budget within itself.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, community development, I expect the conversations. Number one, really the first, there are several items here tied to the comprehensive plan. So state law says you have to look at and identify whether or not there needs to be changes. I think they've done that, and we are pushing forward with a comprehensive plan. Last year, $150,000, it's in the current budget right now, FY26. As with everything, things are getting expensive. We've seen the proposals. We saw what, I think one locality spent $725,000 on a comprehensive plan. I think it was James City County. But comp plans are running $250,000 to $350,000. So we had $150,000 last year. We requested it. Just due to giving staff time to breathe and clear a few things off their plate, we decided to move it to FY27. So we are right now, the RFP's been out. We're getting ready to interview next week. But again, looking for these high ticket items, $150,000 for the comp plan. I know it's a very variable county thing, but this is a decision the board needs to make. Is it, because you've got $150,000 for the comp plan, you've got $1,500 for printing and $6,000 for advertisement. So 157 plus the 150, so you're in for $325,000 right now. So just looking for guidance from the board. What do we do?
Cost-wise, how do we compare to other counties of our same size and complexity?
For recent or cost?
For a comp plan, how do we compare? I mean, I would think that we would be a lot less expensive than a plan for Stafford or.
It is. And, in James City was, I don't know what their population is. It's probably pushing 90,000 right now, but they were 700 and some thousand. But, there's really, you can't tie it to per capita, looking at and I'm looking at Kelly, I think 250 to 350 was kind of that range of maybe a little bit lower. Yeah, that was the low range, 250 to 350 for a comp plan. And I can't recall the counties, but unless you're doing a monster county, I think James City was one of the biggest, but that reflected the rate. So if you ask me my opinion, I think we're right in line with a 25 to 30,000 person community.
That's what I'm asking. And I wasn't trying to relate it to per capita, but the complexity of the county. We don't.
I think we're right in line.
Railroad. We don't have a ton of industry. It's fairly simple, I think, but.
We've been through a couple comp plans amendments. They're pretty involved. So I think we're right in line with our dollar value.
Yeah, I think I agree. This is not an area I would look to cut. We've talked a lot about setting the county up for the future strategy, and this is the beginning step of that. I'm even alarmed that we're discussing pushing it into FY27 from starting in the summer. This is also where we get the community buy-in with what the strategy should be.
I got a question. So there's a few tweaks that we're making to our old comp plan, right? I mean, we're not throwing the whole thing out.
We are. It's a start. It's a redo. Whenever you do a comp plan overhaul, it's a redo.
whoever you do it, whoever does the comp plan, they're going to take past comp plans that they're not writing verbatim something different just for your county. They're going to create something and they're going to plug and play and make changes that conducive. Some of that language will be the same from every comp plan to the next. That's what I'm saying. I mean, just like an architect, every now and then they design buildings, but when they come out here to school, they've already got 20 different schools that they've already designed. They're going to bring them out as if it's a brand new thing for you with a couple of tweaks, right? I'm just wondering we can't create our comp plan. I know it's a tedious process, but I mean, we're going to be using a lot of the same verbiage we already have, and we're just going to be making little tweaks and little things where things need to be changed on it.
It's a good point. I mean, whenever I get my car worked on, I'm going to take it to the professional who knows what he's doing or she's doing to make sure it's done right. We could do it, absolutely. I could probably, work on my vehicle. It may not be done right. It may not be done the best way or the most efficient way. So can we do it? Yeah, we can do it. What's the end product going to be like? Is it the best for our citizens? Everybody is good at their own thing. There are people who only do comprehensive plan updates, and that's the group who responded to our solicitation. So it all depends on what end product you all want.
I go with staffing resources required to do it. This is something that pops up once every 5 years. Like, of all the things to contract out, I just because we're not paying retirement benefits and overtime and all the accessory expenses with an employee for something that is a short duration, 12-month effort to get done.
Yeah, so the thing about, I look at the comp plan and I agree with Bill on a lot of points to that, in that whoever's doing a comp plan, they're going to ask us a lot of questions. They're not going to just go create a comp plan without asking us, what do we want? Where do we want it at? Where do we see the growth? They can't go and say and plug a development somewhere in the county that, without somebody in the county. They're going to go to either one of our boards or to our community development.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Go ahead.
No, I thought you were asking me a question.
Well, I was just trying to kind of making a statement between what Matt and Bill and them are saying, is that, there's updating maps. There's updating the population maybe within those maps. There's going to be updating where the service authority is being ran and such like that. But a lot of it is updating that stuff. It's not recreating it. Somebody, whoever was doing the plan, though, they can't do it exclusive of us. So, to say that, can we do it and put that on our employees, I think I would ask them if it's something that we could just, go in and update, and they ask us questions, and, maybe we update it, I don't know, without having to, pay somebody to do it. I don't know. A lot of the verbiage in there, I think you can look at it and update it where it needs to be updated. But are we going to change? Are we going to move an industrial zone? Are we going to move, a community development? We're not going to move, or not community, but, move a development. We're not going to do that. We may say that there's an area that we want to target for growth or something like that. And, having an outside source tell us something, they could tell us they want to put it somewhere we don't want it, and we still don't have to take that. I think, I'm asking Kelly, what do you think about?
In my experience, I've done it both ways. So when you're doing minor updates to your comp plan, like updating demographics, updating maps, updating sewer and water lines, those have been things that the internal staff has been able to do. I was under the impression that the board wanted a huge public engagement process to go into this, which is the part that we do not have the expertise in. So if that's the case, I'd feel more comfortable hiring outside help to run the meetings, run the message boards, do the graphics where people come and put sticky notes. Like that's the benefit I see of hiring an outside firm. They're better with the public engagement piece. If I could look at census data and update demographics all day. That's something that I could do. Kyle upstairs could update maps for us. That's something he could do. But if we want a full-blown community input comp plan update, we're going to need help.
I would say being here for the last one and coming in just as it has started, the community engagement is very important because the comp plan, we hear a lot of people that come up and they protest on certain developments or they agree with certain developments and they say it's in the comp plan and that's what developers look at and is what businesses look at. So that community engagement is important because they tell us what they want in the community and they elect us and they pay the taxes. And so I think the community engagement is a vital part of the discussion.
In the year and a half that I have been here, I have seen more public comment on this is in compliance with the comp plan. This is not in compliance with the comp plan. It's subjective. So I agree with you in that if you can get community buy-in that says, this is what y'all said, you can't get up here and make that argument anymore. And I think that would benefit you guys. I mean, because you can pull whatever parts of the comp plan you want. One part says solar, one part says no. And people say it's not in compliance with your comp plan, and then they sue you. I mean, so it's like, okay, is it or is it not?
I don't disagree with that, but the people that are going to complain are the ones who weren't involved in the process in the first place. And they're going to say, well done. And it's like, well, you had the opportunity. Well, I didn't know about it. I didn't just know. You just didn't get off your duff or you didn't get involved, but now it's a little late. And that's probably where we're at today with a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's where I definitely see the benefit of having, a group come in that can set up a website, that can set up surveys, that can go out and have public meetings and have the time to get everybody's input.
so can we have a parking lot, Matt, where you put things like this in a parking lot where we don't make the decision on it as we go through? And
my goal is to have a balanced budget to you guys by April 22nd. This is about $160,000 total cost. So, we're going to need to make a decision pretty soon on it if you would like a balance, or we're just going to, I can keep it in, but knowing it may add a third of a penny to the real estate tax rate. I'll gladly keep it in, but if I'm to present a balanced budget, that fork in the road is coming up very soon.
Matt, can this be taken out of the CIP? Or
Capital.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Capital.
Or the
It's
landfill
not a
revenue?
capital. It's not a capital asset. So no,
Right.
unfortunately.
I see the vitalness to it. Just from my experience the last time in getting community buy-in, and I was surprised. I was a brand new supervisor, but listening to some of what the public, you don't realize what they want sometimes. We get lost in a vacuum and not realize what they want. And once again, they're the ones that pay taxes and elect us.
I agree with Mr. Stroud that there probably are a lot of people that are complaining and try to use this against us, but I am also hearing people express concerns already that we're going to cut the public out and not include them in this. And the people that I'm hearing it from, I have pretty strong confidence that they'll actually be a participant and help give us some information, give us some thoughts. So it's a mix. But anyway, Mr. Matz, go ahead.
So I think as we were bouncing it around here, all good discussion on the comp plan. I'd like to come back to the actual budget for community development. I thought we had said no new staff, county staff, and it looks like we still have it goes from 957 to $1,053,000.
That is no new staff. Is that counting the COLA? That was.
There's no new staff and
No.
Brian, jumping off of your point, do we have enough staff for all the projects that are now on our plate? Yeah.
So my counter to that is I think most of the new projects have proffered that they would be glad to provide funding for consultant services. And I'm a big proponent of what do we have to maintain control of versus what can we contract out. So I would just take a look at that salaries and wages on this line. It's $100K. That's more than the COLA.
Salaries and wages. Oh, I'm sorry. Salaries and wages is not just salaries. It also includes some of the benefits like FICA and things like that. Now, the total salary for community development, just salary by itself, is including the COLA, okay? The 2% COLA and the 2% VRS. Because now you have to know that with the new laws that VRS and hybrid has to have a set amount come out every pay period. So their total salary was what, 1,028,309. That's no new positions. That's just with their regular salaries. That's what that
Okay,
is.
that is a little bit better number than what I had written.
Yeah, I'm thinking you guys are looking at the old ones. Those numbers did include probably the
The COLA.
4%
Okay.
and the merit.
Thanks for
And that's why
clarifying.
they look so high. Yeah. They're updated now, and we can make sure you get the new updated forms for all of the departments.
I think even the spreadsheet we got last night still had.
Yeah, these are, and like I said, we were
Yes,
working this
we
morning,
worked-
so,
yes.
so yeah, what's on the screen is the most, that's current as of right now.
So don't even bother looking at what we have in here.
That's why I've been bringing each one up. This is, if you have specific questions, I'll go through my cuts. And, if you have a note, direct me to the appropriate account item and I will go to that. So let's just hit pause on the comp plan. A couple other changes that I made. Contract plan review, we do have some staff in here, so I've cut this out. Now, some of the proffered cases that we've had, we've worked in where some of the citing agreements, hey, we're going to pay for plan review, which is, I think, that's a good approach. There are other things that, as many years as, Kelly's been in community development, sometimes if there's a full-blown traffic impact analysis that's 500 pages, I mean, you need to be a transportation engineer to review that and to provide proper guidance. If the board's looking for the proper guidance, you have to hire a PE who specializes in transportation engineering. But looking at the account for contract plan review, I did cut that by $25,000. That's account 3160 for professional services. I cut $1,000 for office supplies and $5,000 for road signs. I know, so the road signs, a lot of the replacement signs, they contract to get those replaced. If something gets, stolen, tore down, they do have to fix those. I think you guys are.
It's caught up.
Yeah, you're almost caught up. So I cut $5,000 out of that particular line item. So cut where I can, but the big elephant in the room right now, if you guys want to, give me direction today, it sounds like you guys, well, I don't want to assume, do we keep the full-blown comprehensive plan, public input in the budget with the minimal advertising and printing associated with the comprehensive plan? That's the question.
I'd say yes. I want to see us do something with the downtown corridor. What do we want to do with the 3 and 301 interchange? I mean, those should be derived out of that comp plan work. I don't see how we have a logical discussion about those things without going through this step.
I would say yes too, because that discussion targets the Shiloh district, especially, and a lot of the folks in the Shiloh district like the rural atmosphere, and there needs to be some public input about the potentials and how they feel about that and the trade-offs.
Well, we need to add a data center industrial zone in Shiloh district as well. So.
Absolutely not on the data center industrial part.
It's going to be on county record, and we're all going to look like.
No comment.
That was a joke, right?
No.
Could draw straws.
Good. Keep it in or no?
So I got 2 yeses to keep the comp plan in.
Go last. I'm not supposed to go. I'm supposed to. What's the total cost? roughly.
for
160,000.
165 this year, plus 150 in this current budget. So you're in it for about 320, 315, 320.
Keep it in. We need it.
We need it?
Needed it last year.
Okay. So we will adjust the budget accordingly and keep everything associated with the comp plan in the FY27 budget. Okay. Are you guys good with the other cuts that I proposed? Okay. Any other questions for Kelly?
Do you want to do boards?
What's that?
Boards.
We're going to do that's right. Yeah, we got boards right after. So the next one for the boards, the Planning Commission, BZA. Then there's, let me pull this up.
What's BBCA?
That's
Zoning Appeals,
Mr. Herons.
Building,
Board of Zoning Appeals. So whenever somebody has a,
Board of Building.
No,
and Code-
BBCA.
Board
or
of
BDC.
Building and Code Appeals.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, there's too many, as I always say, too many acronyms.
So the one cut I made here, but it is substantial. So on Tuesday night, I mentioned, advertisement, and, Ms. Fish kind of brought this to my attention. She did. She's like, hey, here's an opportunity. Talk to, Ms. LeDuc. So it's an online platform that meets state code for advertising. Take, for instance, the budget that's coming up. This is a very large advertisement. I want to say, whenever we advertise for the FY27 operating budget, we're looking at a public hearing cost around $3,500 just for the ad to citizens. Yes. So community development has certain boards that they're responsible for, but this new platform is $150 per advertisement, regardless of length. So it's going to be substantial savings. So you look here, we just saved $15,000 just in community development budget, and you'll see how it translates to Board of Supervisors as you guys hold public hearings for your application. So I think that was a good find.
What is this? What is this
It's-
service?
Say,
It's the free press.
Oh, and that still covers the state requirements?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
good job.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the kind of cutting we need right there. Kind of good
yeah.
recommendations and stuff.
So that's 15,000. So other than that, that was my only cut for the planning boards. Any other questions for Kelly?
I have none.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Matt, I do have a question on that, just what Ms. Fish had said. So that's only $150 per advertisement as opposed to $3,000?
Correct. Anytime we advertise for a public hearing, it will only be $150, no matter the length and no matter how many times you advertise. So for each public hearing, it'll be $150.
All right,
Flat
thank you.
fee.
I'm so happy to see some competition come back into the local advertising.
Okay, under county administrator, so impacts me directly. 300 for postage. I cut myself out of the VACO conference, $1,800. $1,000 for office supplies, $750 for gasoline. That was based on what I'm spending right now. I think will suffice. And I did cut the 2 new positions, and that's reflected here. So you recall, I did have a new administrative assistant and a new grant writer. So those were salary plus benefits for both of those positions. I've eliminated all new positions at the county. So without benefits, $98,850 from the administration department. Any questions?
I have severe heartburn about cutting the grant writer. That is a job that pays for itself. It's unfortunate you have to fund it up front so that you can get paid back on the back end. Just voice my disappointment in that. While I've got the mic, this is another one where I had flagged the healthcare expenses. It increased 184% from where we were last year. Just double check we didn't make a math error.
We'll check that. Thank you, sir.
We can't keep going down this path, Mr. Smolnick. We ask you a lot of questions. You have to set the strategy for your staff and internal. I honestly, I went to sleep last night wondering, are we not getting the revenue because we have no staff for enforcement? I think I'd entertain thoughts on this going forward in the next year so that we can make a good rational decision. But grant writer is just one of those pieces. I will say I was one of your other positions I was not for, but the grant writer I have, there's economic development, which I know you're having to cover as well now too.
Transportation, Parks and Rec, there's a.
So like I have questions about car tax in the commission, in the revenues office, right? But they're already loaded up with all the reassessment stuff. So we don't have staff to answer the questions we have today. We don't have the staff to do enforcement that we need to do today. How much longer can we keep doing this?
I remember I was requested, I think last year was 23 position requests. Now some of them are duplicate, but this year I was requested 21 just at the county level. So, I don't know what the numbers were before I got here. I know there's a lot of turnover and whatnot, but grant writer is one. If I had to pick one position, that's one where you got an easy ROI, a little bit money up front and you get return back. But then I'm tasked with, closing that delta. And, that's.
Maybe I'd recommend to my friends here that maybe we get better at watching the revenue and expenses and deficits as we go through the year. And if things start turning a corner on revenues, maybe this is something I'd recommend we bring back up mid-year.
This could be a mid-year hire. We could bring this back up. You can authorize a half FTE come January 1 if.
I think Mr. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Mr. Metz, how are you all this morning? I had a question. You said healthcare went up.
I am looking at health insurance premiums, account number 2300. It was 25,598 in the FY26 budget, and it jumps to, I don't say have your spreadsheet, 71,956. It's almost three times.
For county administrator?
Under county administrator, fund 100.
Yeah, the premium for the county administrator is only 29,520.
All right, so there's typo.
So that's got to be something.
Yeah, it was 25,598 last year. Now it's up to 29,520.
With the increase of
that makes way more sense than what.
Yeah. So please, if you see some more of that, let me know because I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, that doesn't sound
thank you.
But thank you for clarifying.
Some of those, how does that information get in there? It's an export, is it not?
How did some of the information get in there?
Okay.
Yeah, but you couldn't, if it's an export, you would.
So whenever there's a new healthcare premium, we actually enter these numbers and we actually verify these numbers. That healthcare premium is actually what the employee chooses. There's more than one different one that they can choose. So whichever one they choose, that's the yearly cost for that healthcare.
I think our question was, how did it go from printed as 71,956 to the real number you pulled up was 26. I'm guessing somewhere somebody dragged a column across.
I mean, because maybe some of, it'd be nice if we went through this and realized, hey, you know what? There's actually, it's not as bad as we think it is because.
No, I don't know. I didn't even see this and I didn't look at it. I wish we had it, but it may have been something that was dragged over from another column. So I can tell you right now that's wrong.
Well, we've got on our updated working documents 29,520. Good question.
Yeah. And so I don't know how many of that is like that. So
can we do anything for you gentlemen? Or
if you guys want to take a 5-minute break, I will be happy because I printed off the new ones myself. I will be glad to give it to you.
No, it's okay. It just, as long as, I shouldn't say it's okay. There's an error. In this case, it's in a good way.
Okay.
But
is there a way they can just look online or follow through with this?
How about this?
Yeah,
How about after tonight, meaning Monday, you guys send us your updated spreadsheet?
And what we can do, so, and I was thinking about this just to give you guys, I got to check with Levita because all these spreadsheets, every single cell is tied to one another. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not saying I don't trust the book, but I can give you access to all of these to go through them. but we got to lock it because if once you start switching numbers, it changes everything else. I think that would be helpful.
I think for our purposes, if you just take the values from the summary, I don't necessarily care about the workup sheets, but if you can at least give us the copy the values from the summary into a new sheet.
Okay.
So that we can go down and look and, do some real quick math on, percentage increases and whatnot, then I think we can at least have some educated questions to bring on later on instead of going item by item by item. We can look for some big deviations. That make sense? Amy says it makes sense. You're overruled.
I think some of the clarification, Ms. Fish sent you all the spreadsheets and that was printed last night. I forget what time, 9:30. They will continue to be worked on for about the next 3 to 4 hours. So what she sent you, that was still a working document. We were in process of making those changes, into the AM hour. So I think that's some of the confusion. Whenever Ms. Fish sent those to you, those were the most updated numbers, and we went through and made additional changes to try to find these cuts for y'all. All right, we ready to move on? Next one, Board of Supervisors. Let me pull this up. So with the Board of Supervisors, one of the first things I cut, I know we talked about this last year, and I asked the question, and it was said, let's keep it. It's GoToMeeting, which is the platform we're using right now. That's $6,000 a year we pay for. We already have Microsoft, the suite, which has Microsoft Teams. So why don't we just use that? That's my suggestion.
As someone who has had to use it, I had said to you that as long as the Teams allows us to participate, I'm good with that.
Right.
The GoToMeeting can be a challenge.
That's right. Yeah. So I've cut GoToMeeting altogether. Also in 3160, Scribe. So Scribe is the board elected last year to have verbatim minutes. We talked about this, so we've kept it in there. So right now, the way, and some of this dovetails into a recent discussion from April 7th with the splitting of the Board of Directors, Board of Supervisor meetings. So the way it's set up right now, the Board of Supervisors pays the entire Scribe fee. So what we've done is we've looked at that amount and a 60-40 split, 60% Board of Supervisors, 40% Service Authority. So that's what I cut out 40%, and that's the $1,920 reduction. That whenever Mr. Hamilton presents his budget, since those meetings will be split, we figured this is a good time to split part of the transcription costs of the.
I have a question too, and I'm going to go back to, I've seen all the old minutes and that. Legally, we do not have to give such a detailed transcription of the meeting minutes. Legally, it isn't. I mean, somebody could themselves go to YouTube, download it, and transcribe it.
That you are correct.
100% honest. I just think we get rid of it and go back to the way that is legally.
And if that's the board, it was very specific last year. The board directed me to keep verbatim until the board tells me otherwise. We're going to keep it. But if this is a good point for discussion, if you don't want verbatim minutes, we can get rid of Scribe altogether.
We're cutting back to what's mandated. I would run that by the county attorney because it does still say we have to provide minutes. I don't know whether the YouTube counts as minutes.
I'm not talking about that. If you look back at the old ones, the minutes are different. It's not word by word.
More action minutes.
Yeah.
As long as we're not going to generate staff hours to generate the consolidated set of minutes, right? Scribed or scribed or whatever it's called.
Jeff, you want to?
Again, if it's saving us staff money, I'm for it. But if
We can ask Mr. Dines too and see if our teams, because you can transcribe in there.
subscribe, yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't get every word correct, but it gets plenty close enough. And if there's a problem, people can deconflict.
But we still go back through even with Scribe. I know one time when she's gone, it was Miss Bucket instead of Miss Puckett. So it very similar, but those are easy things for staff to run through real quick. Boom, knock them out.
Yeah, just let Microsoft do it.
I agree with that.
Because how much will that save? Because it's kind of silly to use it.
It's $4,800 a year. So between both of these, that's almost $11,000 in savings right there between those two.
Good job.
So we'll cut them both. Good deal. We'll make note of that. All right, and then the advertising account, this is a dovetail to what we had with Kelly and Community Development. I was able to save cut $17,000 out of this budget for the free press. We may be able to go a little bit more, but I just wanted to make sure that that's where we're at. So 17 out of 25 is now gone, and I took $500 from office supplies.
And Matt, I just want to make a comment here because if public is listening right now, is people don't realize that every time we have to advertise something for the Board of Supervisors, it's an advertisement we're required to do, and it has to come out of our budget.
That is correct. Any other questions with the board? That's $25,420 out of your budget.
Just sitting up here chatting, I think we could probably take a little challenge on those conference fees.
Okay, that's $55.40.
Last year, at least 11. I don't think we're even close to spending that this year.
Yeah, so we've got VACO for each board member, professional training for a new board member, and then VACO training for the board members.
You can take money from me out of those.
Okay.
I'll just pay my own way.
10K? You guys agree with 10K? We're not going over that, I don't think.
What is it at right now?
It's $12,750. $12,750. That's
Might go back to the number when each of the board members have to do a travel budget, so that could be 10 probably is a fair.
okay. We'll reduce that down to 10,000. All right, I think we've got that noted. Thank you.
You're going to VACO, right?
Yes, I'm also on the board of directors, so yes.
I figured. Are you going to go again? Okay. You want to go?
What's that?
VACO. Okay. You don't want to go.
I paid my way last time anyway, so if I do go, I'll just pay my way.
One more time in English.
I paid my way last time. If I do go, I will pay my way.
Okay, fair enough. And we've got 3 representatives there. I don't think we all need to go. I'm not going then.
Okay.
If somebody drops off, I'll take their spot, but
I don't plan on going anyway.
So 10,000 less another 1,800. All right, noted. Thank you. Any other questions on your all's budget? All right, moving on, county attorney. So I've got that up here. As you know, we have a contract with Mr. Stewart. So let me pull this up. So the big ticket item is line item 3150. So we have a monthly retainer in here, 12,875, and then there's per his amended contract for any outside litigation, $300 an hour. We baked in 420 hours. I think the first couple months, 20. I think we've been receiving bills for outside counsel 20 to 25,000 each month. So we had to include that at 126. What we did, we slid the Kaufman and Knoll's HR support. Sometimes there's HR specific. We had a case very recently. Chief Moody in his 28 years, me in my 22 years, we've never faced it before. So we have to have outside HR counsel. You got, attorneys who specialize in each areas. I know Human Resources has a good relationship with Kaufman and Knoll's. Senator Stewart put me on to Ford Harrison. So 2 different attorneys, one's Northern Virginia, one's down in Hampton Road. So we slid those from administration and human resources into the county attorney's budget. So it was just a even for even transfer. We've got a health insurance for Mary, $825 a month. Outside counsel, I cut that by $30,000, was 50 down to 20. And then third party attorney fees, I cut it from 8,000 down to 4,000.
What are you saying? Back up. So we have a contract with the county attorney. He's He's not staff. What did you say about healthcare?
So whenever Ms. Mary Pelletier Stewart passed the bar, she assists. And we had a conversation about, can we provide health care insurance for her? The legal answer was, no, we cannot. She's a contract employee. We cannot do that. However, they offered the supplement for her to purchase health care insurance.
Was that part of the contract that we signed with the attorney?
It was not in the contract. I know there were some discussions among the board when this came up.
Did the board approve this? I don't recall this being in the minutes anywhere. It's a 70% increase over last year, and you look back 2 or 3 years ago. I remember my predecessor proclaiming about the savings we were getting with the county attorney, and we're spending more now than we ever had.
I can actually answer that. That was a personnel matter, and that was in a closed session, so that.
In the open session, he has talked about how it's we're half as this expense we used to be.
And in the past, they were spending about $500,000, and a lot of that stuff was on.
I was never in the budget for $500,000.
I'm talking about in the past. That's what and a lot of that was just on outside sources of our past attorney having to reach out for help on everything. It was somewhere abouts there.
And in the past, we had a attorney and an assistant attorney also in the budget.
So you're okay with them approving contracts without bringing it to the board?
I don't think they have approved the contract.
It sounds like we're now paying for an assistant attorney and healthcare for an assistant attorney. Look, I'm just looking for budget items, right? Ideas where, can we get contracted services where it would be cheaper for some of these questions? I think HR, you're doing that, right? You're going to an HR company for HR attorney questions, right?
I guess, Brian, I don't understand what your question is. I mean, because you made a couple of points, so what's the down question?
So I guess, well, let's just go with off of last year's budget. How much of the difference between 267,100 and 370,400 are for the additional, so it's not apples to apples. How much of that is for your HR attorney?
So for HR, we have, I took it down to 8, and 12 is 18,000 for HR. That was a transfer, so $18,000 transfer.
That doesn't nearly account for the nearly 100,000 in growth. I mean, so there's still 80K that's growth from last year.
I believe with the amended contract, the second item there, the litigation and outside services, that's the $126,000.
Okay.
I think that's where it came in. That was part of his amended contract that was approved by the Board of Supervisors, and those were the bills. I think the first couple months are $20,000 to $25,000 a month on top of his retainer is what we're being billed.
And the only way to really fix that would be to get out from outside litigation.
And we can look at that. They do itemize the bills that come in. If we want to present those to the board to see how that is being billed, we most certainly can.
And then
I think we just needed to explain it. I think you've done a decent job.
I can say on the HR part, since I had to deal with that when I had my role at the beginning of 2024, there is definitely legal that no county attorney in HR related, you have to have people that are specific, especially in federal. And as it was put to me, those rules change monthly. And so you have to have a law firm that actually specializes in that type of law. It's just like water law. You have to have people that are very specific in that kind of law.
So going back to something you just said that kind of concerns me, and I want to make sure that we clarify. And I'm going to speak for the board, but y'all correct me if I'm wrong. When you say that the way to get away from this is to get out of outside litigation, we're not going to roll over and let Amazon win.
I did not say that.
I know, but I know where you're going.
I am not going there.
So what I can do, for the board, what I'll do is I can send you the monthly invoices to see how they relate to what specific cases. I can get those to the board as they come in.
What do we have going on right now? It's the HOA with Hop Yard, Amazon.
Yeah.
Those are the only two right now, right?
There's not a lot right now. There was last year. We had that development.
Jackie's saying something to me. Sorry.
There's also the,
Horty Group,
yeah.
that's a recent, that's a
When I say
recent one.
Bloomy, it's Horty Group.
That one just came in. Ms. Dillard's going to go pull the monthly invoices to,
And they should be in the warrants every month, right?
the amount is, the detail, how he, how his hourlies are billed and what specific cases are not in the warrants. Warrants are just a dollar amount.
I'm good for today.
Okay. Anything else with county attorney?
No, Mr. Chair. Do 5, or I can excuse myself.
Yeah, let's take 5.
Okay, thank you, sir. Will do.
Thank you.
Keep 5 in it.
What you looking for? Funny old beat. I know some of this heat for the weather. Sheets did last year. When I said, I don't know if that should be in the CIP.
Dude, where you going?
I was just gonna get that.
Off again. I think. Jonathan, you gotta go to the bathroom? Come on up.
So with the social services budget, I just want to start with the administration. I know, it's a very unique department where there's a lot of matching funds coming from federal, state government, very complex budget. Looking through it and having conversations, we met yesterday at 3 o'clock. So I did not propose any changes to DSS budget, but I think Jonathan, who he is, I think he's got a few things to bring to the board's attention.
Yeah. I have brought cuts. I was listening all morning. But before I get into that, I just wanted to inform you kind of how our revenue works. So we receive upfront allocations based off of the state budget, which ultimately is informed by the governor's final budget. So yesterday, Matt and I met to talk through some of the administrative items in the preliminary guidance for the Youngkin administration's budget that he released back in December. Now that could all change. We have a new governor, and currently the House and the Senate are at odds. And they have recommended different things that would impact our administration. So the preliminary guidance recommends, provides a 2% cost of living adjustment for salaries, as well as a one-time 2% bonus. All of that could change. I think the Senate or the House recommends a 3% COLA and doesn't include a bonus. And so we're waiting for the state to give us final guidance. But when it does come to that, those revenues and the final budget guidance, one thing that I always want to avoid is leaving money on the table that gets distributed to other localities. So one example of how that would work is if Spanberger recommends a 3% cost of living, and we only provide a 2%, then we leave that remaining 1% on the table, and it goes and gets dispersed to the localities that provided it. Same with the bonus. So that's one avenue that I just wanted to kind of inform you of. But in addition to salary adjustments, the cuts that I'm going to recommend, I shared with you all back in December. I think that was when we had our first budget work session. And I discussed the Benti platform, which is an AI component that we could utilize. It's got a $30,000 price tag. At this point, that is a dream I'm willing to forego currently. So that's 30 grand. That's budget 3160 professional services, Benti. And then in the same category, 3160 professional services, we had earmarked consulting and management training for $10,000. We can we will not utilize that this year.
So in its entirety?
Yes. Yeah. We can
Jonathan,
do that next year.
The Venti, would that have eliminated the need for a staff person or not?
No, it would help improve performance, compliance, and ease the job of existing staff. It doesn't do enough work to reduce staff. And then also we requested a copier. So that is in budget 5410. So lease rent equipment, and that's the $5,089. I will point out, just if you're looking at annual comparisons, this is beyond the DSS admin budget, but the Children's Services Act, CSA budget, we reduced that by $800,000. Our projections from last year, all the growth that we have seen every year did not happen. It actually reduced. That could change. I could come back next spring and say we have blown the budget because more kids required services. So that is a very finicky budget item. Yeah, so those are my cuts. Do you have any other questions?
Are over there already. So, and then you talk about using that for compliance. You're already at like 99% compliance all the time. I don't know what you're asking.
There's always room for errors,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Sure, thank you.
Easy.
All right, next up is economic development. I'll pull this up shortly. Of economic development. Just bear with me for a second. I know I made cuts. I just want to find those. Okay, so with economic development, one vehicles, what we did, we transferred the county administration suite. Let me back up. County administration suite has a Dodge Caravan. That was a fleet vehicle where people could sign out. Now that we're fully staffed in the administration suite, I assigned that vehicle to the suite itself, and then I have my work vehicle. So I was able to cut some money. I don't want to double dip between administration and economic development. So I cut out $250 for vehicle maintenance with that particular line item. Account 3600, cut $2,000 for advertising. I'll pull these up so you all can see them. So advertising, I cut in half. Then that's also for sponsorships of events. I cut 5540 travel, IEDC. This is the International Economic Development Council. I'm focusing on the state and rebuilding some things here, so I don't need to travel nationally. So I pulled this conference, as I did 5810, $400 for IEDC dues. I cut $600 for gasoline, and then Google Suites. These are actually the EDAs, just like the Planning Commission. They do not have their King George domain, so we have Google Suites for their Gmail accounts, 6012. I pulled this out of the operating budget, and this is taken care of through the EDA. So EDA's budget, $6,066 worth of cuts.
See, the FICA went down by like half, and then the VRS, I'm sorry, health insurance premiums went down by like a ton. Are those cuts real, or are we messing somebody up?
So no, if you recall, there was a realignment of the Economic Development Department with the FY26 budget. That was 2 full-time positions. There's a blended position now, so that's why.
Awesome, thank you. Just want to make sure.
Any other questions for economic development? All right, hearing none, I will move on. Engineering Public Works, we have Mr. Young coming up here. I will pull up his budget. I did make some slight adjustments last night. And the Public Works. So the big thing with the engineering department that I did make a cut to was the position that I had recommended on Tuesday night. This would be the inspector. So that position is gone. I have, let me pull up my email here. I've got it. There we go. Thank you, Ms. Dillard. So So without the new position, Mr. Young had hoped for, he built in obviously what that new position would need. And one of them was a vehicle. So we cut out the vehicle repairs. We cut out $420 for a cell phone, cut out $1,000 for the new vehicle insurance, and cut out $600 for gasoline. So really his $83,220 plus benefits are associated with the cutting of the capital projects inspector position. And those were the cuts that I made for engineering. We have two very hardworking individuals in this department.
I just chuckle, you have one landline for $48. Can you put his cell phone back and get rid of that landline? No, I guess I would bring up, like, we probably should do an audit across the entire funding lines of how many people have both a landline and a cell phone. I think most of us would just move to a cell phone.
I would agree with that for the cell phone, except for the emergency contact function of the landline.
Yeah, that's why I figure you kept one.
Mhm.
Our landline, is that not a VoIP?
I'm hearing from myself, yes, it is.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Young while he's here? All right, thank you, sir.
I do have a question, but not about the budget. They're running that Powerdale Millbank?
I do not have anything to do with that. That would be, I believe, Dominion.
Dominion?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, underground Powerdale Millbank, that's a good thing. Doing away with overhead power lines.
All right, moving on to emergency services. Let me pull this budget up. This is, I see Henson and Moody here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. All right, I'll start just what we did just to keep the same format. So I went through this line by line. This is one of the bigger budgets here. Emergency services is a very important component for citizens. Looking at this, I started with account 1200. So Chief had requested 9 new positions with this current budget for his staffing needs. Unfortunately, with my proposal, there will be 0 funded positions. So what I did, I went back through this, and I did this late last night. So if there are some corrections, I'm glad Chief is here. But this is what I did from a layman standpoint going through. I'll start with item 1200. So there are the additional paramedic employees. I took that out. That was $105,036. Also, the additional EMS supervisor lieutenant, the assistant training officer, and the additional deputy fire marshal. These were all positions that Chief had requested, and rightfully so, he built them into the budget. But since I'm not recommending funding any of those, we can take them out as far as account 1200 goes. So looking at this, and here's where I may need some clarification. Looking at certification pay, I know there's been a lot of discussion on this. I had a good talk with Chief Moody just a couple days ago on this. So for the EMT advanced, so I guess my statement and or question. So I see 6 current plus Henderson minus Beverly. So the way that shows that's telling me that there would be 6 instead of 10. So if that's the case, we can go 4 times 3 is $12,000 a cut. And is that in here? But that's a $12,000 cut that I made. It's probably in the summary, but I'll double check on that. Additionally, with $1,650 for preceptors, ALS preceptor down here at the bottom. The way I read this late last night, 12 qualified in 2025, and there may be more. I'm looking here, it's showing 20 at a rate of $1,250. What I did, I reduced it, yeah, there we are, the $22,000 reduction. I reduced it down to the number of qualified. If that changes, we can talk about that, but I want to do 10 at $1,250. So for where am I at here? I'm sorry. 1650. It's actually, that's cert pay. This should be cert pay, not temporary. That's where I got, but the line item down here is certification pay. The tab, this heading is incorrect. That's what threw me off. Moving on to 3110. We've got health services. So physicals, there were 9 positions that were not funded, 9 new positions. So instead of the full amount for pre-employment physicals, I reduced it by those employees who are not funded with the FY27 budget. 3310. So I noticed this in the fire rescue, the EMS, and the general properties. They all have money for general station repairs. So this is, I saw that line item in 3 different budgets across the county. Reduce this one by $2,000. I don't know the extent. We have to go back and see exactly where they're at, what they've spent. But and you'll see the cuts in the other budgets also. But it does not need to be in 3 different places. Minimal cut in 5220 for UPS and FedEx. Where are we at? 5220. Messenger, that was a small cut. That was a $250 savings. 5540. I know there's been some discussion on this. So the aid to localities grant that we have, this, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody who's homeowners insurance, if you pay homeowners insurance, there's a portion of that premium goes into a pot, and the Commonwealth divides that pool of money based on population. And that money can be used for very specific things. It calls it out, turnout gear, PPE, travel training. There are a couple of things. I think you bought a boat a couple of years. You can use it for equipment purchases. Yes. So trying to push, as I stated last year, I'm trying to push everybody to exhaust the grant money that comes in first before we spend a dime of taxpayer money. So it's going to be tight, but I'm recommending that we push 3,000 for the food and lodging, and 5540 to ATL, as with the EMT basic and paramedic training, 16K. I'd rather use the grant money first. And if there is a deficit, we can always come back. He can come back to me throughout the year and says, Mr. Smolk, I need a little additional money, but I want to exhaust ATL to begin with. And then, it was 3,000, 6,000, 5899. This is the Line of Duty Act. So looking at this, the new positions requested, unless I'm missing something, this is, the 7 here, we can cut out this $3,712.80. So I made that cut last night. 6,001, which is general office supplies, minimal cut, 13,000 down to $200, 13,000 down to 11,000 for a cut of 2,000. And then 6,007, this is building supplies. So supplies for the upkeep of the buildings was 15,000. I cut it by a third down to $10,000. So for this particular budget, emergency services, total cuts $190,600.80. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I know I've got 2 representatives from fire rescue here. Should the board have any questions?
Anyone? Go ahead.
When's the new fire station come online?
In Dahlgren?
Yeah, Dahlgren.
We're hoping to start construction this maybe fall, and about a year of construction time. So we're probably, we're looking a year past, what's that, 2028? Fall, winter, 2028.
Okay, so next budget is when we'll have to think about outfit of that station. I was thinking about some of your cuts. I'm like, if we were not doing maintenance on Dahlgren, when does that come back to kind of catch us back up? Okay. Nope. Just thanks for giving us that little bit of.
And hopefully most of our startup cost would be in the actual capital budget.
Big expenses. I was thinking like
utilities.
Toiletries and janitorial supplies, medical supplies.
We're anticipating that not being a big change.
Good.
Maybe a little bit of change, but not a big change.
You think we can get you on the agenda sometime, maybe May, June, to come and give us a little 5-minute status update on just so we know what's going on with the fire department, with the new building?
Yeah, I would. What I would recommend, I'm happy to do that anytime. Is if we can get the project to a point that I can give you kind of a good update.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we're moving. The architects are moving from their design phase. Once that's complete, then we're going to have kind of some renderings, in which we do have some renderings right now. I know Supervisor Stroud has been an integral part of that project. But once we get to, we can provide some estimated numbers, give you some good renderings, give you something that's a good product for a presentation. I'd love to do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? All right. Oh, you got a question?
Not really a question, but what we may want to do like later on in the year, whenever after the budget and everything has passed, is take kind of like where we're at and then where you started from a budget aspect with
wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just so everybody understands the huge difference. And really, whenever they see the renderings and see what's there, I think they'll be pretty impressed with it. So
Yeah. No question. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And my nickel back.
No. Yeah.
I think in some discussions, we're in the next recruit class right now. What Mr. Smolnick has shown us last week, if you looked at what was not funded, was he had some minimal budget in there for overhires. I know that we always have a little fallout during the, we've been getting 10 recruits in and 10 rarely graduate. I don't think ever have we graduated a full 10.
No, I don't think ever.
So this is a policy that he's not allowed to violate. And since we own the policy, I think at some point I'd like to get Mr. Smolnick to propose, is there a better way? Those people don't come onto the budget until halfway through the year anyway. Maybe with an agreement between the heads and the administration, what's a good number to allow them to overhire temporarily so that we'll end the year at a better headcount position than we've been at.
Gotcha.
I don't think there's a real expense to that from a budgetary perspective, from a budget cap, but there is a headcount impact, and our policy today says we're not allowed to violate that headcount.
Okay.
No, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I think that's just smart strategy.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Build a little buffer in.
And that's almost become the industry standard. I think most of our neighbors are doing that, because if not, you really can't. If you have a person that's a month into program, you can't rewind a clock. The program itself is moving ahead. So it's kind of like I know we have. If you think about boot camp, if a person drops out of boot camp 2 months into it, you can't just bring a person in and say, all right, well, we're going to put you right in and start. You're like, no, you got to go to the next boot camp. And that's kind of where we're at. And that's a good analogy.
Very good. Cool beans. Any other questions? Yeah. Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
You just gave us reading material, I think.
Yeah, all that was is so that was one of my budget items that I passed. When we internally gave our budget presentation back in, I think it was January, and in this very room and amongst our internal team. And there's no question or secret that probably between public safety, fire rescue, law enforcement, and the schools, we're all in a hyper competitive market. And so I knew that a couple of them had changed since January. I didn't know that almost all of them had changed. And so just from January to where we're at today, our market around us has changed substantially. And, I just try to always, position ourselves as a county, how can we recruit and retain, particularly with our starting pays, not our mid and not our upper pays, but our starting pays. Like Caroline, for example, we're hiring at 49,000 starting. They just upped it to 58, Caroline. It's going to be very tough for me. Westmoreland's paying more than our starting. I lost a guy to Westmoreland last year to make more money. Correct, and work less hours. Yeah. So that's just a challenge we're in. I mean, I've been pretty open and clear with that with Mr. Smolnick. It hits hard when it's west of us. It hits harder when it's east of us and south. And I'm not saying anything that doesn't affect any other department. We're all in the same boat. It's just a public safety right now is just a hyper competitive market, and it's changing. We're trying to do our best to put flyers and recruitment things and say, hey, come to us. I had 8 positions in the academy that's in this recruit academy. I had only 10 finalists. So it's about a 1.2 ratio per position. That's all I'm trying to do. There's some Northern Virginia localities in there. I know that's not up to us, but it just gives you, it allows you to put a pulse and a temperature of what's going on particularly in our market. So thank you.
I would take that as a big plug for there's some new curriculum they're looking at in the CTE realm to work with our high school students that want to go into this field. Like, it's a bit of a supply and demand, right? So let's also help on the supply side. So yeah, thanks for that bit of info.
As always, thank y'all for your support. We couldn't do what we do for the community without you.
Ask you a question.
And Mr. Smolnick and administration.
Mr. Moody. So kind of like the Marines do, the Army does that. Do you guys go up to the high school and set up recruiting tables and things of that nature?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know that you guys hired at least one of my old football players, and
yes, we did.
He's from King George, and I sense that he will probably stay around King George. He likes King George a lot, so I know that will help. Also, it helps with Westmoreland or something because they don't have any paid fire departments, so they're able to pay EMS a little bit more because we kind of picked that load up a little bit for them too, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Look, we're every county's in the challenge. Calls are going up, and the availability to volunteer is going away, and it's just a challenge, But no, we're to your point. We are very involved in the CTE program, and we want to keep being involved. We've been able to recruit and get some good young people, but we also, to Mr. Supervisor Metz's point, we also envision a supply. We're going to need these positions and need these young people to take these positions and jobs as our county develops. So.
Yeah, we're getting ready to have to outfit a new fire station and a new VOTEC building, so budget's only going to be going up at some point.
And back to that comp plan update discussion we were having, when are we going to need a Shiloh fire station? Right.
I'll tell you.
I think that was in the February 11th exercise we did. I want to say that was
when we put it in for CIP, but that comp plan really defines what is our vision, how far do we go, but without having that, right? We might be wrong on our guess on CIP.
We've got to worry about a barn and hay and everything for the horses first.
Right.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chief, if you are, the next budget is yours also. So King George Fire Rescue.
Yep.
I've pulled that up, made smaller cuts. So this is obviously a smaller budget. So going through last night, let's see.
We'll just skip a reset.
3310. Again, this was the repairs and maintenance. You'll see this in the general properties, and you saw it in emergency services. I made cuts here. Again, if Chief does need more money, he can come back, but I saw this in 3 areas of the budget. So I cut these 5540. This would be the travel and training. This was a push to the ATL, the ATL Localities Grant also. I'd like to see that grant burned up before we spend any money on training. Is there, yeah, if you need to interject, please do so.
If I could just highlight one point on when it comes to the building maintenance, the reason why it is seen in a separate in this budget is in the other budget is for Company One. And Company One is a county, you as a Board of Supervisors own that building. This budget is for it's actually for 4 actual structures that are volunteer owned in which we have a lease on. And part of that lease is we have to maintain it. So for example, we had to put a new roof on Company 2 in Dahlgren about a year ago. So that'd be a good example. So we pay for that, but we don't physically own those buildings as King George County. So just to highlight that. And that doesn't mean we can't cut some. I just wanted to point that out, that it was volunteer-owned buildings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we build the new Company 2 station, what happens to the old one?
That's a great question. I have some ideas and recommendations that I don't want to necessarily go into right now, but if nothing is done, okay, then what would happen is we would vacate the building, the lease would be terminated, the volunteers would retain that building, they would sell the building, most likely, and then they would keep the money.
Okay.
And that's the way it would be, and at least for the fire station. The rescue station, the older building, I believe they can't, they have to maintain that because they can never sell it. If they ever.
My understanding was it was donated and it has to always be used for fire rescue kind of.
Yes,
services.
yes,
Okay.
sir. That's my impression and my research on that building as well. But really the one that would get some money would be the fire station.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Isn't it true too, if we don't maintain that one, it has to go back to the family that donated? I think that's also part of it.
Yes, that was part of the whatever deed, I guess it'd be.
And then really the last cut, 6,001, just as I've done with most, why did I cut this 4,000? I think I typed 4,000. I did not mean to go 4,000. This should have been a $500 cut because I did not plan on cutting. So it was a late night cut. So that should be actually a $500 cut, not a $4,000 cut for general office supplies. And that's it for emergency services and fire rescue. And everything else, the EMS grants, that's money in, money out. So I believe that's it for Chief Moody and Chief Henson.
Right, thank you.
The ambulance, I don't know.
The ambulance fee, no.
Good, yeah. We didn't make any changes
No,
in that anyway.
no.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. So I see, I'm proud to say Your Honor walked into the door here a little while ago. Honorable Charlie Clark. So we've been through the courts earlier. I know Mr. Clark came over on his time here. And one thing, I know there was a question that came up on Tuesday night, the law clerk position that was asked about, is that a comp board funded position? The answer is no, it's 100% general fund. So I did have a talk yesterday with Ms. Murray. I think she passed it on to the judge that there's no new positions here at the county. Yesterday when we spoke, there were 3. As of last night, there were 0. So Mr. Clark is here if there's any questions the board may have, or if there's anything else that he'd like to add.
Well, first, let me say that it's good to see everybody. Haven't done it from this side before. It's good to see everybody. Hope things are going well. To his point, I'll just say, since it's being recorded, I think Judge Strickland had come in maybe in December was when that meeting was, and had asked for a law clerk position. And a law clerk is different from an intern because an intern has not been through law school. A law clerk is a lawyer. They have not yet passed the bar sometimes, depending on where they are in their career, but they know how to analyze cases. They know how to help write opinions. And it's something that's very helpful, especially on the civil side of things. And what it can do is really speed up the process in terms of how quickly chambers can get orders out. So if you have a case coming before us and we need to get you a decision, but that decision is going to take some research, it's going to take some time. It might take 10, 15, 20, 30 pages of writing. If I have to do that myself, when court's done at the end of the day, and you start compounding that by case after case after case after case, the speed of justice slows down quite a bit. And I'll point out, asking for a law clerk is not just trying to make my life easier. It certainly would. But a law clerk also really does serve the community in a lot of ways that you don't think about, because things can get done a whole lot faster. I'll give you a perfect example real quickly, and I know y'all have got a lot going on, but if you have an adoption case come in and it's sitting on my desk and I've got a stack of stuff this high to get through, and I can't go through and check that they have hit all the boxes they need for that adoption case because I've got 3 or 4 other pending things, then you've got a set of, willful, wanting parents to be waiting on this order so they can finally tell this child that they've been adopted and they are now their own. It's things like that. I understand. I have not been watching the meetings, I'm sorry to say. But I understand the financial position that the board is taking right now. I'm not asking for the law clerk. I'm not trying to lobby you again today for that. I just wanted to make sure that for those watching at home, when we come back next year and ask for it, hopefully the revenue situation is a little better. And the 75,000 plus benefits ask at that time, I think will be fully justifiable. And I'll ask you in the exact same way I did today. Otherwise, and obviously this is new to me, but in looking through the budget and what's been spent in the past, I'm good with everything else. I didn't do this particular budget. Judge Strickland and Ms. Murray were the ones who went in and submitted it. But everything in here, I think, seems very reasonable. The majority of it, of course, is the judicial assistant, and I can't tell you how indispensable they are. And Ms. Murray has got the reputation in the circuit as being one of the fastest, most go-getter ones. So we're proud of that. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. I know, given the fact that I just went after Chief Moody, this seems like a pretty tiny number, so.
Well, I will tell you that there's a few positions that I feel like the county needs, and the grant writer is one, the law clerk is the other one. I think that we have some pretty big cases coming up and the more support and help judges have in dealing with some of those things on the bottom line, I don't think it's that big of an ask.
Well, in the current financial climate that I have heard, it would be a big ask, and I understand why the answer today is no, completely and totally. I'll lobby for it again next year.
All right. Mr. Collins is not going to be happy.
No, he's not. I think I'm going to see him in about 3 weeks, and I'm sure he'll say something about it.
I appreciate you coming in. That was my question. I was trying to get you law clerk. I thought it was part of the comp board list of positions. I think I'd asked it last week. I appreciate the explanation. I think Ms. Guzman had also talked about reshuffling a few things. Appreciate you working with us this year, and I'm sure we'll keep an eye on this one, maybe even before we get to next year if the revenue turns around. Or at least I'll.
Otherwise, is everyone comfortable with what's on the sheet as it stands? Well, then I won't waste any more time. Mr. Chairman, you look like you might have a question for me.
No, I was just going to thanks for stopping by. Never a waste of our time. It's always fun to see you.
Happy to do it. Had a docket in Westmoreland today, and it was pretty long, but we got here. We made it happen.
We appreciate
Good
it.
to see y'all.
Thank you, sir.
You want to jump to finance? Or we can take a break if we need to. I said, we can take a break now if we need to, but we just got off one.
If you're not ready, Matt, we'll just take a recess.
Yeah, we can take a recess. I thought I was holding somebody up if we take the 1 hour recess.
That's our fault. I figured she was here, we could knock it out.
I think she's ignoring us altogether.
Hey.